The ZV-1 Mark II might be the best compact camera. On paper, it has amazing specs with an ultra-compact design, but it also has brand new features specifically for vloggers and content creators. So I tested the ZV-1 Mark II for photo and video quality, along with the new features to see if it's actually worth the hype or not. As always, I'll leave links down below for the best pricing. The ZV-1 Mark II has an ultra-compact and small design. It's honestly about the same size as my smartphone. This is a really easy camera to always keep on you, and it can easily fit in your purse or your jacket pocket. The body itself has a pretty premium feel to it, but it is hard plastic, so it's not metal like the Sony RX series. However, I have already dropped this camera and even cracked the plastic, and it held up just fine, so unofficial drop test. The ZV-1 has a really interesting built-in lens with a 2.7 times zoom. It has an 18mm to 50mm zoom range. The 18mm is perfect for vlogging. It's a really wide shot, and it's much better than the older 24mm on the ZV-1 Mark I. And you can easily zoom in for close-up shots with the 50mm side. And it also has a variable aperture between f1.8 and f4. It's f1.8 on the 18mm side and f4 on the 50mm side. f1.8 is the fastest aperture I've ever seen on a compact camera like this, and f1.8 aperture makes the ZV-1 Mark II truly magnificent in low light. And it also has an ND filter that allows you to shoot wide open even on bright sunny days. The ND filter simply cuts your light so you can continue to shoot wide open. And it also has a built-in 3-array microphone that sounds almost as good as an external mic. And it also comes with a removable wing protector for outdoor shooting. And this is what that audio sounds like indoors. I do imagine this audio is going to sound really good, and it's going to sound almost as good as my regular mic. And this is what the audio sounds like while talking outdoors with the windscreen on. Honestly, audio still very solid. And by having such a good microphone built right into the camera, it helps keep the camera small and nimble and not much bigger than a cell phone. And the camera also has really simplified buttons. It has a single button to switch between photo, video, and slow motion, so no complicated mode dial, and 2 separate record buttons, one is for photo and one is for video. And it also has a button to add the shallow depth of field effect, aka the blurry background effect, with just one click. And like any good vlogging camera, it of course has a side articulating screen, but the screen also has touch controls for touch autofocus. You can quickly change your menus with this, and there's also a quick menu on here to quickly access all of your major settings. This camera honestly feels a lot like a smartphone, so if you're coming from a smartphone, you're going to feel right at home. And the Sony mobile app also lets you connect your camera directly to your smartphone, so if you want, you can send your photos and videos directly to your phone for social media. But one thing that is missing from the ZV-1 Mark II is a built-in flash. With the microphone, there probably wasn't enough room for a flash. However, if you're a casual shooter and you just like the look of flash photography, unfortunately, there's no flash. But how does the ZV-1 Mark II actually look, and what are the new smart features for creators and vloggers in this camera? The ZV-1 Mark II has the same 20 megapixel 1-inch sensor in the older ZV-1 Mark I. And with this sensor, the ZV-1 Mark II shoots 4K at 24 and 30 frames per second, which is exactly what vloggers need. And it also shoots full HD video at 24 and 30 frames per second, along with 60 frames per second for 2x slow motion and 120 frames per second for 5x slow motion. And you can also access the slow motion in this camera through the dedicated slow motion mode. In this mode, the camera automatically slows down the footage for you in camera. And the quality of the 4K video in this camera is amazing. You probably wouldn't know this video is from a compact camera unless I told you. And the 1-inch sensor is also really good in low light. You get pretty clean results up to 3200 ISO, again using the f1.8 aperture, but you can also shoot as high as 12,800, but at that point, you're really pushing it. Now, one really important feature for vlogging cameras is the autofocus, because without that, making vlogs is such a pain. And the ZV-1 Mark II now has a dedicated DRAM chip specifically for the autofocus in this camera. And the autofocus is really fast, really reliable, and does a really good job with subject tracking as well. In terms of autofocus for video, this is exactly what vloggers need. It makes autofocus worrying like a thing of the past. You can basically just shoot and not have to think about the autofocus. However, the ZV-1 Mark II does not have the newest AI-based autofocus in the new Sony cameras, so you're getting an older Sony autofocusing system, but it's still really good. And one really useful autofocus mode in this camera, specifically for content creators, is called Product Showcase. It's where you hold a product up to the camera, the autofocus instantly snaps to that product, and when you put it down, it snaps right back to your face. And it also has really good digital stabilization, giving you super smooth handhelds for vlogging shots. But one really important thing about the video in the ZV-1 Mark II is that the video is only 8-bit color, where most new cameras now have 10-bit color, and even most smartphones have 10-bit color. However, this doesn't really matter unless you're planning on doing some intense color grading and you need some really good flexibility with your colors. If you're just planning on shooting vlogs, maybe touching up the color temperature here and there, you will be just fine. However, Sony future-proofed this camera with this one feature, and it's called Cinematic Vlog Mode. In this mode, it actually adds a cinematic color grade onto your footage, and there's several filters to choose from. And on top of that, you can even add a second filter on top of all of these cinematic color grades to really dial in exactly the kind of cinematic look you want. And you can even adjust the speed of your autofocus in this mode. And Cinematic Vlog Mode also adds black bars to the top and bottom of your videos. This does make it look more cinematic because this is how movies are shown in theaters. However, I don't know if most vloggers want to shoot like this. And you can also only shoot in 24 frames per second in this mode. Cinematic Vlog Mode probably doesn't make sense specifically for vloggers, but if you're a travel content creator or someone that just wants to shoot really pretty stuff, this is a good mode to use. And I personally really like the colors in Cinematic Vlog Mode, but Sony, if you're listening, please turn off these black bars. And when it comes to photos, I actually think the ZV-1 Mark II is the best photo compact camera, despite not having a flash. The ZV-1 Mark II shoots at a blazing fast 24 frames per second. This is as fast as regular video, and if you're getting action shots, walking shots, or any kind of action, this is going to do a tremendous job of capturing every single frame. You simply will not miss your shot. And the autofocus does a really good job in photo mode thanks to that dedicated DRAM chip. Even shooting at 24 frames per second, it did not miss a single shot. Now, photo mode doesn't allow you to use cinematic vlog mode, which is kind of disappointing, but photo mode does have its own creative filters which add some really interesting look to your photos. And you can also shoot 14-bit raw photos for serious editing. Now, most vloggers are pretty used to using beauty filters on their smartphones. The ZV-1 Mark II does have a smooth skin effect, but it looks really bad. It makes your skin look like plastic. I think it looks awful. From a design and feature perspective, the ZV-1 Mark II is pretty great, and cinematic vlog mode is going to be very popular. But if you don't need all these fancy features, you can actually save $300 to $400 by checking out the Canon G7X Mark II and Mark III. They are older cameras, but the audio is really solid, the video quality is good, and the autofocus overall is generally pretty reliable. The biggest difference you'll notice is that instead of a side articulating screen, that screen comes up to the top. And for about the same price as the ZV-1 Mark II, you can also get a mirrorless camera with interchangeable lenses. Two of my favorites are the Sony ZV-E10 and the Canon R50. Both of them have APS-C lenses, and both of them are much better in low light because of that bigger lenses. The ZV-E10 does not shoot 4K in 10-bit color, it only shoots 4K in 8-bit color, but the Canon R50 can shoot 4K video in 10-bit color. And this is probably the best quality photos and videos that you can get in a camera this small. So I definitely think the ZV-1 Mark II is the best compact camera that you can get right now. It has the latest technology, and there's no other compact camera that's quite as powerful. If you decide to pick one up, make sure you get the best pricing on your ZV-1 Mark II by checking out the links down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.